Okay, good afternoon. This is Satish Menon again at Agiliron, and welcome back to the third session of our partner training for this month. So today's topics, which we have mentioned from last time, is we'll cover the BI module first, and then we'll go into the CRM back office capabilities. So on the BI module, since this is a new module, I'll try to spend a big chunk of the time today covering that. And then on the CRM back office, a little bit of a refresher in terms of the various capabilities and such that are available. And given the depth of capabilities, that obviously we won't cover everything, but we'll hit some of the most important elements, especially from a point of view of prospect communication, customer communication, that type of thing. Okay, so with the BI module, this is a new module. We introduced this last year, primarily to address the business needs of management reporting, especially with bigger businesses. And we've seen quite a bit of adoption among power users, especially people that do a lot of analysis, that type of stuff. And this really helps with those types of things. It's also pretty neat from the point of view of delivering, intelligence to the people that need to receive it at whatever frequency you determine. So if you want to have a report show up in somebody's inbox in the morning, you can set up a timed report and have that delivered. So that this becomes sort of a part of business process rather than something that somebody has to think about and do. And that's really what you want to be able to get to is, we got now this integrated suite. All of this data is pouring in from, all the places that you're doing business. And you want to make sure that you have the visibility that you need to be able to make business decisions on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. So that's really the goal of this BI module. So let me jump in and we'll begin walking through the BI module. Much like with the previous sessions, if there are any questions as I go along, please do post them on the questions panel in your GoToMeeting window, and I'll pick them up as and when possible. Okay, so now I'm logged into the to the back office here. And you will see at the bottom of the left panel here, there is a link for business intelligence that's been added. Okay, by default, it is not on. So what you do need to do is you would go on under my account and my profile, and you would click on Customize tab. And over here, when it is not selected, this would be sitting over here on the left-hand side, right? And so what you would do is select that, click here, and then hit Save to essentially, enable that module to be accessible and available. Okay, so let me go ahead and click the Business Intelligence module. Okay, so when it loads up here, what you see on the screen is a tiled display of all the various reports that the system already comes with. Okay, so there are a variety of standard reports that we provide, and you can look at them in this styled fashion where it shows you a little bit of preview if it's a chart or if it's data, row column data, and so on. Or if you want to change the layout to more of a list view, you can do that as well, right? And this shows you basically all the name and columns and stuff. This runtime column here is something that provides a little bit of information on how long these things typically take to run. So you can see the ones which are kind of in orange. It has a medium runtime, right? So things that are obviously large reports that take a while to run, you'll be able to see those in here as well, so that you kind of know that if you're going to run one of those, it's going to take some time. So here, for example, is one in red, right? So on the left panel here, we have a standard folder, Okay, and then in there we have each of these different modules that contain the various reports. So if I go under sales orders, for example, you'll see there's a bunch of these reports. The ones that begin with these Ds are ones that we basically use in dashboards, so it's very much more chart driven. And we'll look at the dashboard piece of this shortly. And then the other ones are more, the raw data in the form of a table that displays the actual numbers and so on. Okay. So, so the standard reports by module, most of these are actually ones that borrow from the original ones that we had in the old reporting module, which is still available as well. Eventually, we might consider phasing it out, but for the time being, because of legacy customers and people that have created a lot of those reports, etc., we will continue to keep that reporting module available as well. But most of those reports have been copied over here, and then what we've done is provide some additional ones like these dashboard ones, etc., which take advantage of the charting capabilities, etc., that's available in this new module. And as we see more usage by our customers and the kinds of things that people are requesting and the stuff that they're creating, we'll continue to augment the list of these standard reports to essentially, leverage some of that knowledge and make it available to everybody. Now, when you create your own report, it would go under this custom folder. Okay, so under custom, this is the instance that I'm using, smprod1 test, and so there's a folder underneath it. And this is where you would be able to place, any custom ones that you create. The standard ones are shared by everyone, so you can't put something in there. But the custom ones you can create and place that under your own folder. Okay. Underneath here, you can create additional folders if you wanted, in some cases, if you wanted folders to be driven by groups within the company. So sales versus marketing versus management, that type of stuff, then we can create folders for each of these groups and, essentially restrict access based on those folders. So, if there are certain reports that only management should see and not some of the other teams, then, you could put it there, restrict access and so on. And we'll look at that when we create the reports as well. So primarily, the main thing here is the navigation from the point of view of standard versus custom, the layout of how you want to look at this, and then there is global search. So if you want to search by the name of a report, etc., you can search it there, and then that filters automatically if you want to find something. Once you start creating a lot of custom reports, that would be a useful feature that you can take advantage of. Okay, so let's go into one of these standard reports. So I'll go ahead and run this one. Let me switch back to thumbnails. Okay. Okay, so let me select the sales order detail report. And these three dots essentially represent a menu. So I can say open, which will run the report and show me the results. Or I can share this with somebody, add to favorites, etc. And then there is this make a copy, right? So standard reports you cannot modify, right? Because this is, again, a shared thing across all customers. But what you can do is if you like this report but you want to tweak it, you can make a copy, put it into your custom folder, and then from there on you can do what you want with it, right? So you can add fields, add filters, whatever the case might be, right? So that's a nice feature that you can take advantage of. Okay, so let me go ahead and run it. Okay, so this is a simple report. Just shows you all the orders that were received. It has a subject, the customer, order total, shipping method, payment method, where it was shipped from, so on and so forth, right? You'll see that there is one filter that we have set up here, which is created time. It did come up with a default, and that's based on whatever was set up as the default time. And in this particular case, it means the last year, right? And so I could go back and obviously change this, hit apply, and say go, and this would essentially refresh this with that particular time range, right? So so this is a standard report. Many of them have these filters, etc. So that you can decide to change ranges or select particular accounts or things like that. And then so once you run this report, there are a few features here that you can take advantage of. One is export. So you can export this report as a CSV, as a Microsoft Word document, PDF, export it to text, or as an Excel document. So let's say, for example, we select PDF and say export. So it generates a PDF here. Go ahead and open that. Okay, there we go. So this is the report exactly as you see it on the screen. That's what shows up on the PDF, and this is true with all of the export types, right? So I think what you see will be pretty much similar to what you see on the screen. Then next you can do share. You could email this report to somebody, right? And you can select from the recipients of the users that are in the system. Okay. You can do a broadcast, and this is where you set up these timed reports, right? So you could say, I want to do a personal broadcast. And here's where you can put in a subject, you can put in the body of the email, you can select in what format it should go out. HTML means that it would actually be in the body of the email itself, the output of the report. PDF, it would be an attachment, and so on and so forth. And then you can set up what frequency you want to run this, and at what time, and so on. And then there are some advanced settings as well, in terms of specifying the time and such, right? So this is one mechanism to set up these timed reports so that it automatically runs, delivers this into your inbox, and this is a feature that we see used extensively by customers that have jumped on this, right? Okay, so that's the broadcast, and then this is adding it to favorites. So if you want to put it into your favorites folder, if you got 200 reports, then obviously there may be a few that are more important than others, and you can flag some of those things as favorites. And this is to bookmark things, right? So if you want to create a bookmark that again you can go back and pull up, or if you want to take a snapshot in time and save it off, you can do that. And finally, there is the details box, right? So this shows you, what is this report about, which modules is it using, so on and so forth. If you click on columns, it will show you, which are the fields that are being represented, those types of things, right? So that's the basic framework as far as the report is concerned. So once you run it, there are a few operations that you can do it. And so obviously the key thing here is to create the reports that you want, and then obviously take advantage of these features to be able to send this out to the people that should receive it. Okay. A couple of questions I see. Let me pick those up. Yes. So the question is different styles, line plots, bar charts, different colors, all that stuff. Yes, we will get to those. Those are all possible. There's a lot of customization that's available at various levels, and we will cover those as we keep going. Okay. All right. So then let me create a new report. So I'll click on this plus button here. I'll say report. Okay. So the first question is, what modules do we want to create this report from? Okay. So I'll start with sales orders. So okay, that's what we'll use as a demo example here. Okay, so we ended up on this screen, which is the designer for this report. And I'll just move these so we can see all of these different buckets. So what we have here on the left panel is all the fields. Okay, so if I expand this information, the first one, it has all the fields that you would see on the sales order form, right? And these are, grouped alphabetically. So for example, order number is a field, subject is a field, and so on, right? So we have these things bucketed by, shipping information. Here you can find the things related to the shipping stuff, address information, the bill to, ship to, so we have all these are bucketed into the most logical regions. And then you find underneath it what are called related buckets, right? So within a sales order, there is an account, the customer, and then there is also potentially a contact, specific individual within that customer, right? So within the sales order itself, you have a reference to those, right? But the actual information about that specific customer and that specific contact is available under these related buckets. Okay, so if I expand the accounts information, here is all the fields that are related to that particular customer account, right? So one could add that into this report as well, since it's sort of an integral part of what the sales order references. Similarly with contacts, right? And then down here, products, right? So we have line items on the sales order that says, okay, these are the elements that are being purchased by the customer. And those line items and everything related to that product, all that information is available to be pulled into this report as well. Okay. Now, obviously, there are a lot of fields here. And if you know what those field names are, then search is a good way to actually find them quickly. So let's say we're going to add a few fields here. I'll start with order number. Okay. So I got that filtered, and I'll drag that and drop it here. Okay. Next, let me do the same for subject. Okay. Added that. And let's add the account name. Okay. We'll add a few more fields. Channel, where did the order come from? What was the reference order number in the channel? Okay. Let's also add created time. Okay, so we pulled in a few fields that are, part of the sales order. I'll also add the status. And now let's maybe also include the product information. Okay, so I will add the product name, and I'll put that here. Okay, so now we have this report with a bunch of columns. And what you're seeing here is a sampling, right? So where it's pulling some of the data so that you can kind of see what this report will actually look like, right? We haven't really run this report yet, which will pull in all the data. And that would happen when we click on output, and once we save this report, then it will actually run it, right? But this representative sample gives you an idea of what it's going to look like, okay? Now, let's say we wanted to change this report such that we wanted these things to be organized by product. Okay, so I want to see these orders grouped together by product. So what I do is I move the product name as the first column. Okay, so you can see there's a bunch of these all text speakers that have been purchased with the specific order numbers and such. Okay. And so if I wanted the grouping, what I'll do is I'll click on this drop-down menu, which offers a variety of options as it relates to making changes to how this report is represented for that particular column. And so let me go to format, and I'll say edit. And here's a field that says suppress duplicates. So I'll turn that on, and I will save this. Okay, so now what you can see is that we have this grouping now, right, where you can see for each of these products, as I scroll down, you'll see the other products, right? And this report is now grouped by product, so it's sales by product, and you can see the specific order numbers and who purchased it, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now let's say if we wanted a little bit further grouping, where within each of these products we wanted this thing grouped by customer name, right? So I'll move the account name as the second column here, and I'll do the same thing that I just did for the account name column. Okay, so now within each product, I can also see, who purchased it, and for within each of them, what were the order numbers and so on. Okay, so so this is where you have somewhat of these customizations in terms of how some of these things are displayed. For example, you could go change this, display name to, customer instead of account name, right? So from a presentations point of view, you do have some, things that you can do there. There is sorting that you can set. The styling, I think, you can go back here and say custom, right? And you can select how this particular column is displayed in terms of font and, alignment and, so on and so forth, right? So there is a lot of things that you can do here, and you can certainly play with, all of these features. And once you're on the screen, you can toggle between the different fields and do them so that you don't have to go back and forth, right? Okay, so that's as far as those particular columns are concerned. And then now let's say if let's add one more field, which is the order total. Okay, I'll put that here. Okay, so we got the order totals on each of these. Okay. And let's say we wanted to get the aggregate total of these totals, right? So I can do that as well. So I'll go under totals and I'll say sum. And that will put the total at the bottom, for all the orders pulled together. Now, we don't see this here yet because, we haven't run the complete report. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'll go ahead and hit this X. It'll say, do you want to activate this report? I'll say yes. And we'll give it a name. And we'll put it in that custom folder. Now you can see here when we talk about report access, there is public versus private. So if this is something you don't want to share with somebody in your team, then you can set it to private. And once you set it to private, then you can actually provide restricted access that says, okay, these 3 individuals I will enable it for, but nobody else. Right, so you have control over this. Now, this is obviously at the report level. We obviously have control at the folder level as well, which we talked about earlier. Okay, so I'll activate that. Okay, so now we've run this report. You can see here it's done a little bit of paging. So it's showing the 100 records per page. This has a total of 238, so it'll spill over onto the second page. So I scroll down here, and then if I go on to the next page, you can see here's the total that we just turned on at the bottom here. Okay. So other than that, you can see this is organized now by product, by customer, right? Just as we had set up there. I'll go back to the first page, and you can see this breakup, right? So that is pretty simple, right? We dragged a few fields, set up the way that we wanted these things to be organized. We turned off, we suppressed the duplicate so that you got the grouping. We added, some the order total, so we could get all the numbers to be aggregated together. And this is bread and butter stuff, right? This is what you want to be able to do minimally to get the data out that you want to be able to see. Okay. So let's go back and do a few more things. I'll go back to edit up here and say data. And then let's look at a few more things. So you see this section up here that says sections, right? So what does that do? So that allows you to now get this report broken out by, various sections. So let's say, for example, we wanted this report run by customer, and I wanted the totals by customer. Now by adding this section, I have enabled that. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so you can see here's one for SMNN, here's one for Agiliron, here's one for Agiliron X, and each of those cases you can see there is the corresponding totals and stuff captured, right? The rest of the report format's the same, but now we have this broken out into different sections organized by each customer, right? So that's a nice feature to have. And then let's go do a few other things. Okay, let me remove the filter. And the way to, by the way, remove any of these things is to just drag the thing back into the left panel, and it will go away. And instead, what we'll do is we'll add a filter that allows us to search these things by account name. Okay, so I'll add it into the filters bucket. And let's go ahead and run that now. So now you see when I run the report, I have this filter available, right? So this allows you, the user that you might have created the report for to filter on this particular report using account name. They can either just type in a name and hit go, or if they click this magnifying glass, it will actually show you the list, and they can select and run it, right? So let's say, for example, we pick this one and say submit and say go. It shows you the ones from just that customer, right? So, and then you can do a reset and it will update, right? So when you are creating these reports, you can put yourself in the shoe of the user and say, okay, what are the kinds of things that they should be able to apply filters on this particular report? An account name might be an example, created time might be another one, so that they can decide what window of time do we want the last 30 days or last 6 months or whatever that they want to pull this report for, that type of thing. So you can consider what those things might be, and then essentially provide those as filters, so that when they run it, they can actually take advantage of that. Okay. Now let me show you a few other things before we jump off of this topic. So when we did this filter, when it initially came up, you can see that it basically was a user prompt, didn't have a default value. But if you wanted to set it up such that it did have a default value when it came up, in addition to providing a user prompt, you can do that as well. So if I went into that format menu for this particular field, here I can basically say default value, okay, and I could potentially select and say, okay, set the default value to this, when you run this report, right? This allows you to constrain something. So for example, if you had this customer using the system for 5 years and you create this report, created time as a filter, you probably want to set up the default value for that created time field to be, okay, last 30 days or last couple of months or whatever, because you don't want this report every time that it loads to be running 5 years of data, right? Because it's going to be time consuming and it's not going to return very quickly to the user, right? So those are examples where, if you're picking these filters, you might want to provide some reasonable defaults so that, it does come up quickly. And then if they want to expand the, time horizon or whatever, they can then go ahead and do that, okay? Okay, then let me just show you a couple of other things here. One is this auto refresh field. So this thing is on by default here. And what that means is that when you are making changes to this report, it is refreshing the data here, to show you what it looks like. and it's actually pulling real information, though only a small sample of it, right? And that might be fine, as long as your data set is not too big, right? But as your data set does get big, you might find that, doing this thing, especially as you're constructing this report, is cumbersome, right? Because it takes time. Every time you do make a change, it refreshes. And so if you didn't want that, you could turn this thing off. In which case, every time you do the construct, it is not, pulling real data, and so it will go much quicker. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you was this code display, right? So what the code display allows you to do is, once you've, let's say, created a set of reports, but they're all part of a similar family where they're pulling, let's say, just different ways to represent the same information. Let's say, for example, this is a sales report, and we wanted to do sales by account, sales by product, etc. And then say, okay, let's display all of these things together in adjoining tabs. Then code display is the way to do that. Okay, so once you select code display, you can click related reports, and you can basically select, okay, which are the ones that you want to group together. Okay, and here obviously it shows you all the reports that you have, and then you can drag and drop them here to essentially say, okay, these are the ones that you want to kind of group together. Okay, so I won't go through that exercise right now, but this is a feature that's available if you wanted to do that. And this is something, again, that we find a lot of customers taking advantage of, because you do want to kind of see all the right pieces together. Okay, and you can see here now that we have this auto refresh off. Here it's showing you dummy data rather than showing you the real stuff, right? And then the final piece is, obviously all these fields that we saw are the standard fields in the system. And then if you wanted to create your own calculated field, there is this plus button down there that allows you to construct one, right? So here you can come in and you can say, margin, for example, as a name of the field. And then you can say, okay, margin is, price minus cost. Okay, so let me say line item price. Try this again. I seem to be having a little bit of technical difficulties with this. So let me kind of just mention how this works. So you would essentially select the field here. Oh, I know what I was missing. Here, let me do this. And then I add the operator. So I'll say minus, and then I can select the next field. Okay, there we go. So, and then you can give it a name, margin, right? And if you want, you can run a validate on it. Make sure this is a valid expression, right? And then you can save this, right? So this allows you to create, calculated fields that is a combination of, the fields that you do have within the system. And this thing is pretty powerful. You can actually have, logic in here, including if then else, and so on, and sums, and so on and so forth, right? So so this allows you to create additional formulas and calculated fields and stuff like that to extend what you want to see on the report. Okay. Okay, so I think that covers the reporting element here to the extent that's possible today. So let me go ahead and save this. And let me pause here for a second. Let me see if there are any other questions. Okay, so I think we got some compliments saying this is awesome, which we certainly appreciate that feedback. And then now let me switch to charting, right? So let me go back to our report. And I'll turn off this core display, and I will click on charts up here. Okay, so so now here we are on the charting designer. At the top here it says auto chart. Okay, and then what is the axis? So let's go ahead and add a few things here. So let me start with order total. And let's say product name. Okay, and you can see here this kind of captures the breakup between products and order totals, right? So let's say if I go back here, let me go ahead and turn off the account name filter. Then we'll be able to add account name as well as a column. Let me do that, and then I'll go back to the charts. Okay, add that, and let me remove the product. Okay, so now you can see this thing is a chart that shows you order totals by customer. Okay. We started out with this auto chart, which is basically the system automatically picking based on the data that you've selected, what chart makes the most sense to display. But then you have control over, what you want to actually select. So let's say, for example, go down here and I wanted a pie chart instead. Right, I can do that, and you can see now I have a pie chart, right? So once you create these charts, they are associated with that same report, right? So you got the tabular data, but you also have the charts that you just created. Okay. Up here, you have controls over the chart, right? So chart settings, positioning, style, all of those types of things, right? You can customize those. You can adjust the title. You can set up the legend, background color, labels, so on and so forth, right? So you can play around with the stuff in terms of how you want this to look and those types of things. Obviously beyond the scope of what's possible today in terms of time, but all the features are there in terms of being able to customize this look and exactly the way you want. Okay, so once you have this this set up, then I can go ahead and say output. Okay, so now you can see that here now, in addition to the table data which we had originally, now we also have this chart on top of it, right? And we can go ahead and activate this. Okay, so here's the report now, right? So if we go back now to our original browse screen, and under the custom, you can see now we have these reports that are set up here, and I can go ahead and open these. And I get what we just created. Okay, so that's covering the basics of what's possible here, right? So obviously the BI module again has a lot of depth in terms of things that we can do there. I think but this gets you 90% of the way there in terms of the kinds of things that you typically want to do. And then of course, if we wanted to kind of get a little bit more fancy, let us know or reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help in terms of constructing what's needed. Okay. Now the last piece that I wanted to cover is dashboards. So you over time, you're going to create a bunch of these reports, right? And it will be that you want to see some of these things together in a particular dashboard screen, so that let's say when you come up and you pull up a sales dashboard, there may be these 5 or 7 things that you want to kind of see together, right? And that's what this dashboard is meant to do, is allows you to create a combination of reports, charts, etc., onto this one screen that you can pull up and say, okay, here's the snapshot that I want to look at, and I might do that on a daily basis or weekly basis or whatever. But it pulls up all that information, presents it in a succinct manner, and you get sort of this view into the business based on exactly the kinds of things that you want to pull up. Okay. So this is a dashboard designer, and just like it says here, drag the report here and so on. So you open up this folder, you pick the reports that you want to pull in. Okay, so here are a couple of the ones that we created, and then here are some of the other ones that we had previously set up, right? So I can drag and drop those here. Right, and as you do that, you can see that it allows you to kind of build this thing out, right? And you can create any number of these, so that you can have one for sales, one for purchasing, one for marketing, whatever the different things that it is that you want to present, and then create these sort of unique dashboard that present the combination of data that you want to be able to pull up. Okay, so that's, I think, the what I wanted to cover today as far as the BI module is concerned. Questions? Yeah, so one of the questions is, when will the help on this be available? The answer is, we are working on it. There is a video that covers the BI module that is in the works, which will be another 20-25 minute thing that covers a lot of these kinds of elements. So that's coming soon. And then obviously the user guide will be updated as well. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'll now switch to the back office, right? And this will be a little bit more foils and such, because really the goal for me is to make sure that I communicate, all the various things that's possible, especially on the selling side for the customers. So we'll talk through some of the sales channels first, and then come to things like notifications, templates, those types of things. So B2C and B2B web store, we do offer both of those as part of the platform. And so we looked at yesterday at the web store theme designer, right? So in both of these cases, there is that theme designer available to tweak the design and so on. But you do start with one of our themes, and then essentially tweak it from there. As far as these e-commerce stores are concerned, they provide all the typical things that you would expect in terms of shopping cart and the ability to set up payment and shipping and taxes and so on. When it comes to payment, we support Vantiv, we support PayPal, we support Authorize.net. And then we also support offline credit cards in the case of B2B, that allows you to capture a card and then process it later when you actually ship the product. Okay. And then from a shipping point of view, we have obviously the calculated shipping, which is based on real rates from USPS, FedEx, UPS, and so on. And as well as rule of thumb type of shipping calculations, where you say, okay, for example, if it's $50 of the order is $50 or below, we'll charge you $5, and over 100 we charge you 10, that type of stuff, right? So there is a table-based shipping pricing that's available as well, and we find that a large fraction of people use that because if you used carrier shipping rates, then you do have to make sure that your weight and volume information and all is accurate for every product, and it may not make sense to kind of do that except in certain cases where those are large items, those types of things. When it comes to taxes, you can either have us pull specific rates from QuickBooks, which you set up there, comes into Agiliron, and then basically you map them into these e-commerce stores to calculate taxes, or you let something like Avalara or TaxCloud do that work for you, and we do support both. Okay. So basically, the B2C store is available for consumer-facing e-commerce. B2B is the one that allows you to do B2B, ones that you're selling to businesses. And this does have some unique features in terms of things that you might find typically in B2B situations. Examples like customer-specific pricing, minimum order levels, requiring logins before somebody can make a purchase. You can actually manage customer accounts from the CRM, right? So let's say, for example, you've got 20 wholesalers that you typically sell to. You can set up their account information in the CRM, and then from the CRM you can activate their user accounts and just send them an email and say, okay, here, go log in and start placing your orders, right? So so it really simplifies the management of these user accounts, etc., on the B2B portal. And the other thing is, of course, when you set up that customer account, you can decide which pricing tier do you give them, those types of things, right? So all of that stuff can be done in the CRM side. Okay. So in addition to those that we offer, we also have integrations with external popular shopping carts. So the 4 that I mentioned here are the ones that we support, which by far are the ones that have the largest mind share at this point in time. And this is BigCommerce, Magento, Shopify, and WooCommerce. So in each of those cases, we have adapters that will connect up those stores into Agiliron as a sales channel. Okay. Now, obviously, the motivation here is, when many customers come to us, they already have one of these stores, and so we want to be able to plug into that without having to require, them to create something new. The other piece, which I mentioned in one of our earlier sessions, is if you have one of these stores, then when you connect them to Agiliron, then from that point on, we can pull the product data, pull images, all this kind of stuff automatically from these channels, and that goes a long way towards getting the system set up going without requiring too much manual work. Okay, so if somebody has one of these existing channels, whether it's one of these 4 or eBay or Amazon, then we love to start with those and be able to pull all that information over. Okay. All right. So with these adapters, what is the process involved? It's actually pretty straightforward. So each of them has a separate channel selection within our channel creation dropdown, and then there is a specific set of instructions, in terms of the credentials and how you actually wire them up. Each of them, unfortunately, is different because they all have different methodologies. Shopify is a little bit like the QBO connection, where you just start with and say get app, and then it just connects it automatically. All the others do require you to go into their admin and navigate through certain menus and pull up credentials and then come and plug them into Agiliron. But all of that stuff is well documented, and certainly our implementation team can help if needed. And then once those things are set up, then obviously the rest of it just works just like the native channels within the system. Okay. Okay, so I'll skip through the first section here since we've kind of covered some of this before. And then the in terms of the product management, etc., you would basically select the products inside of Agiliron and then push them over to the channel. So let me just go over that. Okay, so once you come to this product screen here, there is this drop down here that shows you all the channels in the system. Now, this one obviously being a demo system, it has a whole bunch of these, but you would have exactly the ones that you've set up, and this includes your e-commerce stores, eBay, Amazon, so on and so forth. And the way that you deploy the products to a particular channel is you select it from this drop down. You select the products here, and you say channel. And this will essentially come up on this screen. Now, in this particular case, you can see that it shows one of them in red. And if you mouse over it, it says, okay, no price book for this product or options. So that's why we're not able to push this particular one, right? But if you had all the right things set up, then you would come here, and then you would say add to channel. And then basically this product becomes available in that particular channel, okay? And similarly, if you want to take something out, you would come back to the screen and say remove. So that's how you basically select, okay, if you got 500 products in the system, but you want to sell, some of them on one channel versus the other, this is the mechanism that you use to actually place these things in the various channels for sale. Okay. So the first time that you're placing these, you're selecting these products, pushing them to the channel. From that point on, though, once you've turned the auto synchronization flags on, then any changes that happen would automatically get pushed over to that particular channel where this product has been deployed. So you might remember from our previous session that in each of the channels there are these 4 flags for this auto synchronization. Each of these 4 flags that I'm talking about is auto product update, auto category update, pricing, and inventory, right? So these 4 checkboxes are here. If those are on, once you push that product to that channel once, then any subsequent update that happens would automatically take care of itself, and there's no manual intervention needed, right? So now if you selectively decide to turn some of these off, then obviously you have to manually push them again for those updates to flow. But if you leave these things on, then things happen automatically. So normally what you want to do is turn these things off at the beginning of implementation, make sure that everything is all set up properly in the system. And once it is, then you turn these things on at the point that you're going live. Okay. Okay, as far as orders and customers, just like any other channel, once you connect them, orders will flow into the system automatically. If there is a customer that exists with the same, email address, then it will, take advantage of that same customer. If not, it will create a new one. And in the case of orders coming from these channels, we'll create an account, we'll also create a contact, and everything will be wired together. The channel where it came from is identified in the system with the channel field. So let me just go into one of these sales orders. So there is a channel field, which in this particular case says direct, which means it was created directly in the system. And then there is a channel order ID field, which is your reference to the channel where the order actually came from. Okay, so both of these exist in all orders, and it allows you to use them as for filtering purposes or reporting or whatever the case might be. And that's basically your reference back to the source channel in terms of where it came from and what the order ID was in that particular channel. The shipping information. So once these orders are here, you can use ShipStation, etc., to actually ship the orders. So once you create that label, you put the tracking info, ship date, shipping method, etc., into the system, whether that's done manually or through an API or whether it's done through ShipStation, then those things will flow automatically from here to wherever the order came from. Okay, so so once the connection is made, then all of these things will receive the updates as they happen. Okay, any questions before I move on to eBay? Okay. So the other setup. So we talked about e-commerce stores. The other sort of category of sales channels is marketplaces, and the two big ones there are eBay and Amazon. So in the case of eBay, similar to the channels that we've looked at, you can create a channel. It does have a whole bunch of different configuration parameters, and we'll take a quick look at those. For an eBay seller, all of that will make sense. If you're not an eBay seller, that might look overwhelming. But if you got a customer that's coming from eBay, all of this stuff will make sense when they see it. Okay, so here you can see, we have some of the similar fields that we saw with the point of sale and so on up here. But then all of these ones down here are all really eBay specific things. Things like listing type. Do you do auctions or fixed price, or do you do listing enhancements, right? Payment methods, most of the time PayPal, though that may be changing soon, and so on, right? So so with eBay, you have to come and set up all these things, and same thing with shipping information, right? The connection to eBay is something that you do here called eBay Authentication Authorization Token. So once you click that, it will take you to the eBay site. You will need to enter in your seller ID, and then it makes the connection. Okay. Much like we saw with some of the other channels, we have this export, like I mentioned. So once you make the connection, then you can export out all the product data in our import format and be able to pull all that stuff in. And if you hit the copy product images, then we'll get all the images from eBay, transfer it all to our server, so that when you get this file for import, it already has all the image names, everything in there, and the images are all transferred and ready. Okay. And then down here you have the mapping for shipping and payment and taxes and so on. Okay. So similar kind of screen for eBay as some of the other channels, except obviously different configuration options and so on. Okay. Listing products on eBay, just like we did with e-commerce. Similarly, we would click here to select the eBay channel, and then let's say I select this product and I say channel. Slightly different screen because eBay has its own protocol for listing and fees and those types of things. So so here what you see is we have a button that says list on eBay, right? So you can verify all the parameters, etc., that you want to send over, and then you can say verify, and this will actually connect to eBay, send over this particular listing information, bring back what the estimated fees are. Okay, and that would display here, and then once you've verified all of those things, you can click list to actually list these things on eBay, right? So there are two mechanisms when it comes to listing. One is you can do it directly from within the system here, or two, if you have existing listings over there, then that export that we just looked at, that will provide you with all the eBay item IDs for your existing listings, and you just import that into the system. Right, in which case you don't need to go, send these products again to eBay, because you're essentially connecting to existing listings. And that's obviously critical because most of the time, when customers come to us, these are businesses that are successful on eBay, and they already have an existing set of listings. There are reviews, successful ones, etc., with star ratings and so on, and they don't want to lose those. Right, so you don't want to go create new listings necessarily unless you've got a new product set or whatever. You want to essentially connect up to your existing listings and leverage what's already there. Okay, and that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, so that's listings. Once you make the listing, you can actually revise the listing if you wanted to make some changes to it. If you wanted to clone it, you can certainly do that. And then when a listing expires, you can relist, and you can do all of this stuff within the system as well, right? Questions for seller. So on eBay, you have this feature where prospects or customers can ask questions of the seller. So what we do is when that happens, we capture that as a ticket within the system in the help desk module. So you go here under help desk, we have tickets. And so what would happen is just like you see this one here, you would actually get a ticket created with that customer information, their questions, and so on, and you can actually respond to that, within the system as well. Okay, so that way the CRM actually has a complete record of all the interactions, and this ticketing module will show you, what the status is, which ones have been answered, which have not closed, so on and so forth. So that's kind of a cool feature. And then orders, like with the other channels, they would automatically flow into the system. You can ship them, and tracking information will go back. So all of those things are consistent with what we do with all of the other channels. And then there is a dashboard of eBay stuff. So if I go to the channels module here, is eBay. So this will show you basically all of your listings, how many bids you received, what the status is, so on and so forth. And this is where you also essentially originate the duplicate revisions, relist, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there is a dashboard. Much like with other views, you can actually create custom views, etc. if you wanted to be able to see different kinds of things and filters and so on and so forth. Okay. And then connection, we talked about this, right? So we can connect both basic products as well as matrix products. On eBay, those are called variations. And we can essentially, connect to both of those types of products that are supported. Okay, questions on eBay? Okay, so let me switch to Amazon. So Amazon is the other big marketplace that we have an integration with. And in terms of the setup, similar to eBay, you create the channel. The credentials are mechanism a little bit different, but all that stuff is documented. So you make that connection with your Amazon seller account. And then from a product push standpoint, similar process to that we looked at, but there are some details that are different here, and I'll get to that in a second. And then from the rest of the processes, transaction capture, fulfillment, auto synchronization, all that stuff pretty much behaves the same way. Okay. Okay, so here you can see this is the initial screen for the Amazon channel connection, and there are three fields that we need: seller ID, marketplace ID, and this authorization token, which have to come out of your Amazon seller account. And that's really all we need. So there is a process for how to get this within the seller account, which is documented in our user guide. And so once you put those things in, then the Amazon connection is set up. And those are the three fields I'm talking about here. And then once you create the channel, then shipping, payment, sales taxes, mapping, just like with the other channels. Now, when it comes to pushing products, to Amazon, there are two mechanisms here. One is if the product exists on the marketplace, which means that there is a Amazon standard identification number, ASIN, that Amazon provides for every SKU. And so if you have one of those, then all we need is basically in the Agiliron side, you plug that into the ASIN field, and that essentially connects up the product here with the product on Amazon. If it's a new listing, then at the moment, you have to go create this on Amazon, generate the ASIN, and then come and put that into Agiliron. And this is the part that is changing, very soon, which is I think in the next 6 weeks or so, we'll be enabling the ability for you to actually do that directly from within Agiliron. So just like you could push something to eBay and create a new listing there and generate an eBay item ID, with Amazon you would be able to do the same. and then essentially you wouldn't need to go there and create it and so on. So that's something that we're working on, and it's going to be coming in the next 6 weeks or so. Auto synchronization, we talked about that, and the product updates are almost real time. So the reason this is almost is because Amazon does throttle if there are a lot of API calls that hit them, and this is not constrained by Agiliron. It's really constrained by each seller account. So each seller account has a limit on how many requests you can make in a specified period of time, and if it exceeds that, then basically queues it, and then it has to be resubmitted. So sometimes if you push a lot all at once, then it may take some time for that queue to clear. Okay. So orders are captured in real time. This is one of the changes that we actually made in I think it was 10.5 or 10.4, where initially we were capturing orders only at the point that they were fully vetted on Amazon and it had all the information. And we changed that, so even pending orders, we pull it right away. And that way, at least from an inventory updates point of view, we do essentially push those inventory updates right away. It doesn't create a window of time where you may have sold something, but it actually has not registered as being sold. So now we pull pending orders the moment the order actually completes checkout. And then as the payment gets processed, all that stuff on Amazon, and the customer information becomes available, then those things come back into the system and update it as that happens. So usually there is a window of somewhere between 0 and 15 minutes where the order information will change, and then all that stuff comes in, unless of course there's a problem with payments or something, and that order could sit in pending status for a while. Okay, and then shipping information will flow back just like with the other channels. Okay, so I think that's it with respect to Amazon. Any questions? Okay, then let us move on to notifications. So if we go under settings and notification schedulers, maybe I'll flip to this system for that. Has fewer channels and be a little bit clearer to see. You go to notification schedulers. And so here you can see that on this particular page, there are 4 types of notifications. One is order confirmation. This is when it's created or comes in from a channel. Order shipment, when it actually goes out with the tracking info and so on. Order changes, if after it comes in, you make changes to it, there can be a notification sent out to the customer. And then if something's on back order and you're shipping part of the order now and part of it later, then you can turn on this notification that communicates that to the customer as well. Okay, so for each of these channels that you set up in the system, you can decide which of these notifications you want to enable or disable. And then the actual content of each of those notifications is available here for you to edit. Okay, so if we go into one of those, you can see here that there is a editor for this. You can decide who the recipients are from within the system, the customer, which could be the account or the contact or both, sales managers, other users, whatever the case might be. And then in terms of the content itself, you can select from the various fields and markers that are available to be able to essentially post into this content. Okay, so so for each of them, there is a editor that allows you to make the necessary changes and customize this, though the default one is obviously available and doesn't really need any tweaking unless you want. Okay. Now the one item here is about POS channels. So here as well, there is the POS channels are listed here as well, but this comes into play for POS channels only if you have a ship to order. In other words, one that is not obviously fulfilled during the checkout, right? So if it is something that you're going to ship later, those are the only ones for which this notification actually works and is necessary. Okay. And the transaction PDF. So go back to settings, templates. Okay, so here you will find a series of these that say ends in dash customizable. Okay, and these are ones that represent transaction related templates. Okay, so that's an invoice. This is a sales receipt, sales return, so on and so forth, right? And quotes and such. So each of these things is an HTML template, which means that you have a editor which you can use to customize this as needed. Okay, so this template is a default one, but you can change this as needed. All of these ones that start with the $sign, these are markers that can be replaced with other content. And if you wanted to have a different set of fields or custom fields or whatever the case might be, you can essentially customize this as you need it. The source is available as HTML if that's something you want to play with. Otherwise, you have the controls here, just like you do with Microsoft Word and such, that allows you to edit this and stuff and make changes. The fields themselves, you can, depending on the type of document you're using. So if it's an invoice, you can say invoice fields, and it gives you, what these markers need to be that need to get inserted for the various fields that you want to see in that particular document. Okay, so there's one for invoices, codes, sales receipts, and so on and so forth. And if you wanted to create a completely new document, which you select the template and create the PDF like we looked at in one of the earlier sessions, you can do that as well. Okay. And if I close this. And when you are on this template, there is a duplicate button available. So if you wanted to make a clone and then modify it and make changes, that's possible as well. Okay. Now these things are typically the things that come up the most often during implementation, because everybody cares a lot about these things that are customer facing and usually have their idea of what it needs to look like and so on. So this is something that will come up most of the time when you're going through the implementation process. Okay, when it comes to fulfillment, there are 2-3 options. One is you can manually enter the shipping information. So if you're going on FedEx.com and entering it directly there, and creating the labels directly there, you could come back and put in the information, which is fine if it's a few orders. If you are doing lots of orders, then the other mechanism is a file import export, which is available with wherever FedEx.com and so on. You can generate a CSV export that you can import into the system, and that's available at the bottom of the shipping tab. Okay, so at the bottom here you can see import shipping information. There's a template for it, and then the export is something that you can take and pull this into some other system. We also have an API, which I did not mention here, but APIs are available to do the same. So if you wanted to get the list of orders that are pending shipping, API is available to do that. And then if you wanted to send in the tracking information via API, that's possible as well. Okay, so those are the manual approaches, and then we have the ShipStation integration, which is one that allows you to create labels, etc., through ShipStation.com. ShipStation is also a cloud-based system. 30-day trial is available. Even after that, it's fairly inexpensive unless you're doing an enormous volume. And then you can set up the connection, which I think we looked at earlier. And if you do that, then once you push the orders from here to ShipStation, on the shipping module. So here you would say select ship station, select the orders, so click process, and then send the orders over. Once they are there, you create the shipping label, and the tracking info will automatically come into the system. And then from here, it will go to the channel where the order came from. Now, one of the features that I mentioned in our roadmap is in the warehouse management app, which we looked at yesterday, we will be adding this connection to ShipStation so that you don't have to come here, but if you're using the warehouse app, then you could do your picking and packing, and then the shipping it to ShipStation, all of that stuff within the warehouse app itself. Okay. And then the final one is FBA, right? So Amazon FBA is also available now as a processor in the system, and specifically for multi-channel orders, which means that these are not Amazon orders, but something that you sell somewhere else. You can actually send it to FBA just like you send it to ShipStation, and have FBA fulfill it for you, right? As far as FBA workflows are concerned, in terms of the movement of inventory, either from your warehouse or directly from vendor to FBA, all of that stuff is supported as well now. So I didn't cover that obviously in this session given time constraints, but we have complete support for moving products from your warehouse stock location set up in the system to FBA, creating inbound shipments, the automatic receiving of that inventory on the FBA side, and the stock numbers updating. All of that stuff is supported out of the box now. We just need those same credentials that you used to create the Amazon channel. You would create those for FBA, and then that becomes a full processor for shipping in the system as well. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, if not, inventory management. Obviously, given what we do and the support for various product types and stuff like that, we have all of that stuff referenced in our user guide quite significantly. So if you search for the inventory module there, there's support for adding, adjusting, doing transfers, so on and so forth. Obviously, don't have the time to cover all that stuff in detail here, but that's stuff that is completely covered within the user guide. So let me just give you a preview of that. Okay, so here on the Learning Center, you can see types of products, and these are all the various types that we support today. Basic products, units of inventory. Basically, you keep track of how many units you have of these products. Matrix items, where you're tracking units by attributes, size, color, that type of stuff. And this is to cover things like shoes and shirts and apparel and that type of thing. Serialized products, which is meant to cover products where you're tracking every unit by a serial number, typically electronics, jewelry, that type of thing. lot track products where you're tracking a group of inventory based on their manufacturing date and expiration date, those types of things, and typically found in pharmaceuticals, food industry, that type of thing. Assemblies, combining raw materials to create finished goods. We have support for that. Kit products, which are bundles of finished goods. So if you sell 3 products separately, but then you want to sell them together as a bundle at a different price, then kit products allow you to do that. Proxy products, this is meant to be aliases of master products. So if you've got one master product that carries inventory, but you also want to sell it under a different name or a different code or whatever the case might be, then proxy products allow you to do that. Okay. Dropship products, ones that you don't carry but you ship directly from your vendor. Service products for non-inventory type of products, and then customizations and substitutes, right? So we have support for all of these different product types, and for every one of them, inventory management is supported with details about adding adjustments, transfers, and so on, right? So so all of that information is available in our user guide for each of these different product types, and so you can reference that there as needed. And then as far as vendors or POs are concerned, we have support for vendors within the system. POs can be set up to purchase the inventory from your vendors. We do have support for dropship POs, right? So when you get your customer order, we have the ability for you to create dropship POs, for example, right? So you can select the orders and click dropship PO, and that will generate the PO for that particular order to be shipped directly from your vendor to your customer, right? And the way it figures that out is it looks at the product line items in the order and then looks at who's the preferred vendor, and then essentially creates the PO directly to that vendor. Okay, so support for that is available. And one of the questions we often get is, can you purchase in one type of units and then convert it to different units when you receive them? And the answer is yes. When you set up that vendor and the vendor part number, you can say what that conversion is. So if you're buying it in bulk and then you're going to receive it and sell it as single units, then you can do that. Email templates and bulk emails. So just like we saw the customizable templates for receipts, etc., you can also create email templates for newsletters. So if you wanted to blast off, now that you have a CRM and all of your customers are here, if you want to send an email blast to them, we certainly have the ability to do that within the system, where we can create custom views that segment your customers based on type or a state or whatever the case might be, and then create the template and shoot off that email to them. Okay. Finally, user control. At the when you set up the user, you can designate what their role within the organization is, and then within each of those roles, there are profiles that you can associate that can control access, both at the module level, which means that let's say the shipping fulfillment person does not need to see access to products and orders and stuff like that. They can be given access just to the shipping and receiving module, and so that's what we mean by a module level access. And also, if you do provide them access to a particular module, if there are certain fields you do not want them to see, then you can do that at a field level as well, right? So it really depends on what the needs are, and basically at both those levels of granularity, we can provide support. Okay, so I think we got 3 minutes left. I think let me pause there, see if there are any questions before we wrap up here. So please type into the questions panel if there are any questions. Yes, a question about the recordings. Yes, well, I think probably later today we'll get the files as well as the recording of all 3 sessions sent out to you. Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, if not, I guess we'll end it there. We'll get the material out to you soon, and if there are any other questions, feel free to email us offline. support@agiliron.com is a good place to send all of your questions to. And then if you want to reach out to me personally, if there are prospects or clients that you might want to discuss or opportunities, then do let me know, and be happy to assist. Thanks everyone for attending, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.